Hi, Scarlett. I would like to welcome you to Quantum Messages. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. I was introduced to your medicine about 6 to 7 years ago when a friend introduced it to me, and when you were living in Northern California. And then afterwards, about a couple years after that, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And then that's when I got deeply involved with your medicine because it helped me. It was such an integral part in helping me overcome my fear of death, as well as just kind of like dampening down the anxiety that I was feeling about having breast cancer at such a young age. And so I just want to thank you so much for making this medicine and making it with so much love and care. I just love it so much, and it was such an amazing part of my healing journey. So, with that said, I'm curious to know how you got involved making medicine. Will you tell us your story?
Yeah, so I think I was born with a natural relationship to plants and animals, and I saw that as a really fulfilling friendship at a really young age. So I would like playing in the trees and making forts, like the trees were my medicine, and the trees were my friends, and the trees were holding space for me when I had hard times. Same things with the animals. So that evolved into like I see a lot of people where they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's kind of this mental process that is sometimes like a checklist of what people like and don't like. But to me, there's never been a separation between me and plants. Like there's never been a thought of what am I going to do? Like I'm going to be someone who's with plants and animals. So I
Mhm.
thought about me growing up and my place in the world. I just looked at it differently, I think, than a lot of people did. And I wasn't always like I would say I was extremely connected to nature and animals till I hit puberty.
Mhm.
And then I got addicted to opiates and
Mhm.
really didn't want to stay on the planet. I thought Earth was this awful place filled with lies and pain, and I couldn't understand why people would operate in that way. And so that confusion just led me to wanting to numb out. And I hadn't been trained as an alchemist yet. So I wasn't using herbs to numb out. I was
Mhm.
using what doctors were prescribing me that told me was okay. And that led to an overdose. So after my overdose in my early 20s is when I circled back to my original essence and
Mhm.
was like, what are we doing here? Like,
Mhm.
we can check out and leave the planet. I don't see death as something bad. Death is just like, okay, I'm good. I'm going to go
Mhm.
home now.
Mhm.
And so I wasn't afraid of death, but then I thought, well, if I'm already here, like I might as well as like kind of fuck around and find out,
Mhm.
right? so I just said my whole life spiritual mission now is discovering true happiness on this planet. And if I can't discover it, then I'll check out. But I
Mhm.
have to put the effort in, is kind of what I told
Mhm.
myself. So that was that. And then from my early 20s on, that's what I dove into
Mhm.
was studying herbs on a more professional level,
Mhm.
to treat myself, to treat
Mhm.
my own anxiety. So it started with self-serving.
Mhm.
And then because things were working so well and people saw me changing, they were like, oh, can you make some of that for me? And it was just this very organic
Mhm.
process.
I'm curious, I feel like a lot of us have this disconnect between childhood and then puberty. And it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man or a girl or a boy. And I too went through that process as well. I was deeply connected with the animals and the plants and the spirits. I was like the nature child. And then once puberty hit, there was like this loss of self. What do
Yeah.
you think? Why do you think that there's that like that loss that happens?
Man, what a great question. On the physical level, it was hormonal.
Mm-hmm.
But it was hormonal in a framework without assistance, meaning had I had a spiritual teacher
Mm-hmm.
that was filling me with wisdom and practices and tools to handle what I was feeling, I would not have chosen pharmaceutical medication. But
Mm-hmm.
when you just put a very spiritual child that's very
Yeah.
sensitive into mainstream society and you give
Yep.
them no tools and then you call them crazy and take
Yep.
them to a doctor because they're not happy and they believe you because they're a kid and they're like, oh, I guess I'm crazy. So then you go into the mind and it's like whatever the mind grabs onto, and I was grabbing onto what parents and doctors were telling me. And I believed them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I allowed them to brainwash me in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's like we need to give spiritual tools to children
Yes.
because they are going to hit the emotional aspect of their hormonal shift. If they have the tools, they're going to survive gracefully.
Yeah.
If they don't, I think we disconnect because we're like, we have to self preserve. We don't
Right.
have the mental maturity to go through the emotions we're feeling.
Right.
And I think disconnecting is a healthy decision. Like when
Yeah.
I look back at when I was addicted to drugs, it was me making the wisest choice I could to embalm myself until
Mm-hmm.
I was mentally mature enough to handle what I was feeling.
So interestingly enough, what age were you in your 20s when you felt like you became fully mentally mature, or like that realization point where you're just like, I have to be here to spread happiness?
I think I was 24, 25.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that because that's when our brains like scientifically are mature at 25, and that's
Oh, really?
me too. That's when it happened for me as well. But there was this elongated, very long, painful time period, within, from like 15 to like 23 for me, where it was dark.
Yeah.
And I went through a very similar process as you.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. It's interesting that you went through that too. And I feel like others have as well. So it's really nice to be able to tell these stories.
Yeah.
When you're making your medicine, what and the medicine for us, for the people that, your clients, what process spiritually do you go through?
So like our most famous popular tincture is the Tranquility. And you and I were talking about Shasta before we started
Yeah.
recording.
Mm-hmm.
I was on Mount Shasta and sitting and the amount of I caught like orbital beings, but they're basically, they're non-physical beings that have Christ consciousness or higher that are here to help us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like I could differentiate if some were my guides or angels or whatever, but in Shasta, like it was very easy for me to sit and communicate with them. In terms of my own nervous system, because I'm so sensitive, that was the core of my spiritual awakening was I had to nurture the nervous system and I
Mm-hmm.
had to stay out of fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
And so I was there at Mount Shasta. I was doing the mineral springs. I was learning about my nervous system. I was communicating with these beings. And what they showed me, which was like this flash of a formula, and the flash is like a second, but then I have this awareness that's like a whole formula on how to make it. And
Mm-hmm.
they were telling me, like, make this formula for your nervous system and take it for 6 months, and
Mm.
then you'll be in a permanent homeostasis and you will have healed all the frying that had been done
Right.
previously. So that was my awakening into like, oh, so the physical nervous system actually has a huge weight on people's spiritual evolution. If you're in fight, flight, or freeze and you're trying to meditate and evolve, like
Yeah.
you're going to be walking uphill pushing rocks.
Yep.
But if you get your nervous system to be in alignment with what your mind and your emotions and your spirit wants, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
You can go both ways, but I prefer the easier way. So
Absolutely.
I went home and I made this formula just as I saw it in the vision and I started taking it and it was immediately like I knew I was like this is not just for me, this is for the collective.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to do with the internet, these smartphones, like I don't even want to call them smartphones or like
Yep.
distraction devices.
Yep.
But so that's how the first formula came to be. And then after that it was like the floodgates were open, and whenever a new formula was meant for the collective, I would have a vision. I would know the exact herbs, the exact amounts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any traditional herbologist schooling.
Mm-hmm.
I have had initiations with shamans to awaken to my plant spirit guides.
Mm-hmm.
And so I work from the unseen realms and
Yeah.
then I bring things into the physical. And that is what White Fox Medicinals is. It's
Wow.
a collection of channeled formulas that are here to help us with this huge awakening.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it really ties into this whole quantum messages thing. Like you were getting those quantum messages and those downloads. And to me, I've come across some pretty interesting information lately and some studies on plasma and how plasma can just like drop down. And I'm not using scientific terms because I'm not, a physicist, a quantum
Yeah.
physicist, but in my perception and my understanding that basically like they're like packets of information that we can get, And it's almost like because you were in the right space, right time, Mount Shasta, and like having that, vortex of energy, you were able to tap into that. And that's why your medicine is so special, especially for me, because I know that it's, coming from that space. And I don't use any other medicine. I only use yours because I know that. And so I just really appreciate that. Personally, for me and my healing process, like the symbols on your products are extremely deep, and they're invoking to the subconscious. How do you choose the symbols on your products?
I would say they chose them. They were telling me who wanted to be on what. So that goes back to when I was a kid with the like animals and plants were my best friends. So when I was coming out with a branded line of products and making it more professional instead of just sharing with friends, the animals just came to me. So it was like the crow was like, I'm here for the massages, and this is why. And then I would write down why the crow wanted to be on that bottle. And the same thing with the owl. And the owl is not traditionally used how I symbolically use it, but that's how the owl and I relate through the medicine. It's kind of me specific in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But even like the whale, when I was designing that label, the whale took me on a water ride of grace, and the whale was like, "This is what you feel like." Like in a meditation, I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Whoa, I actually feel like I'm swimming weightless in water."
Mm-hmm.
Totally free of my physical body and just totally in alignment with spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would come out of meditation and the will would be like, this is my place on that bottle.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like what a lot of people see when they live on earth is these two eyes look at these denser objects
Right.
and they're like, that's what's real. But to me, it's like that's 1% of what's happening.
Right.
Then what we're seeing is it's the past. So there's all these other unseen elements, whether you're sensing them or not, they're going on.
Right.
And they have so many, I mean, they're already in the evolved space of wholeness. So the
Right.
more we connect with them and the more we involve them in the 3D, the more we're bringing that higher vibrational frequency into
Right.
these denser spaces. And I was so sensitive. Like if I ate granola, I lived at a lot of spiritual centers and did a lot of work trades.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always people changing who was making the food in the kitchens. And I could eat a bowl of granola and be like, oh my God, this person was fucking angry when they made the granola. And I can feel their anger in the granola. And it would upset me because I'm like, people like me matter. Like I
Yeah.
want people to be so conscious
Yeah.
that my sensitivities are cared for. So I
Yeah.
look at my products like that. I
Mm-hmm.
won't touch my medicine and bottle anything if I'm having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
I just won't even mess with it. I have to be in a certain frequency
Mm-hmm.
to be able to be of service and in an authentic way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what really sensitive people feel when they get my
Yeah.
bottles. They're like, "Oh my God, she cares. Like
Right.
she cares about everything." And there's prayer. There's prayer in the medicine.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's yeah, and for me, because I'm a sensitive person as well, so I feel it, and
Yeah.
that's why I said what I said. On
Mhm.
on a deeper level, like on a deeper unseen level, what are these? How is the medicine interacting with us, and what do you think its messages are for us in
Yeah.
aiding?
So I would say take me out of the picture completely.
Mhm.
Once you or someone else vibes with my medicine and they make a purchase, the second they hit pay now, that's when the medicine starts working on them. They don't even have to receive the bottles. And this has nothing to do with me. This
Mhm.
has to do with what's coming through me and what happens to be my soul mission.
Mhm.
So it's like I've had people say like, "Oh, I bought that for anxiety, but it was so weird. Like after I bought it, I felt like I didn't even need it." And those are the really sensitive beings that are ready to let stuff go and don't necessarily need the physical treatment. They just needed someone to see them and be like, "We care for you."
Right.
So all of these spiritual orbs are a part of every formula. They're
Mhm.
going to every single person and they're working with every single person on an infinite, eternal basis in the unseen realms.
Mhm.
I think I mean, the same is for me. Like when I book a session with one of my healers or something, the second I send them the check, I don't
Yeah.
need the session anymore. We go through the physical
Right.
whatever of it because that's kind of what we do on Earth.
Right.
My intention gets fulfilled the second the exchange happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, some of I feel like these medicines, including cannabis and psilocybin, are extremely powerful
Yeah.
and they can be misused.
Yeah.
How can we advise people to use them in a conscious manner?
I would say just set the intention.
Mm-hmm.
And then also don't be hard on yourself and don't let any external societal programming make you feel bad about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you currently are overusing cannabis, and I'm using air quotes with my fingers
Yeah.
because the only person that knows that is the person themselves. Like no one
Right.
external to them can say you're overusing.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be them and their soul that'll know.
Right.
So it's only a self-diagnosis to me.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you are enjoying your experience to the fullest while you're consuming cannabis,
Mm-hmm.
you're not misusing it.
Mm-hmm.
If you are avoiding a feeling and you want to numb out, I still don't think you're misusing it. I
Mm-hmm.
think you might be missing an opportunity to transmute denser energy,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what the medicine is here for. I mean, there's been periods of my life where I'm like, it's almost cruel to create beings like me and put me on Earth. The level of shit that I feel and have to go through because of this planet, it's too much on a fairly regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And without plant medicine, I would have checked out 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think it's fair on a level. It's like things I don't believe in my heart and soul that things have to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
Challenges are of course required for soul growth.
Mm-hmm.
But if like so I haven't taken my microdose capsules that I make with the psilocybin, the love
Mm-hmm.
drops.
Yeah.
I haven't taken those personally in years.
Mm-hmm.
When I just moved from New Mexico to Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
all of my trauma from the fires of Northern California woke up, and
Mm-hmm.
my body, while my mind was completely balanced and
Mm-hmm.
even healed and calm, my body was covered in sweat. It was shaking and it felt like it was dying. And I told my body, I said, you're not dying. You're totally safe. I get this is a trauma response. I don't know what else to fucking do. Like, let me know what I can do. And I was guided to start taking the love drops again.
Mm-hmm.
And what you just asked me came into my head.
Yeah.
I want to do this on my own. That's what I said
Right.
to myself. I want to
Mm-hmm.
do this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
I was like, how egotistical am I being right now?
Mm-hmm.
How uncompassionate am I being towards myself right now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm being
Yeah.
hard on myself for taking 1/10 of a gram of psilocybin to
Right.
help me feel like I'm not dying every day, and I'm going to
Right.
be hard on myself about that. Like, give
Yeah.
me a break, Scarlett. So
Yeah.
of course I start taking them, and after half an hour after taking the first capsule,
You're
all of the
good.
trauma response feelings were gone. And it wasn't that I bypassed them or ignored them.
Mm-hmm.
I reconnected to the mycelium that's a part of me,
Mm-hmm.
physically inserting it inside myself. And then I gave my body permission to sink back into the earth because that's what the mycelium is. It's
Yep.
this network of the earth. And so I took the vibrational imprint of psilocybin.
Mm-hmm.
I alchemized it with my own system. And then my system said, oh my God, thank you for the assistance. I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's
Interesting.
just really the angle. I think people like to gauge quantities
Mm-hmm.
and frequencies, and they like to label. I don't think that's helpful. I think we're hard on ourselves enough,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
personally.
no, that's really fascinating how you were saying the vibrational imprint of psilocybin and then putting it into ourselves so that it can alchemize our own system and balance it. So, I mean, personally for me, psilocybin was huge as well in rewiring. I was like, the way I imagined it was like kind of rewiring the synapses in my brain because like I was having so much fear. And like you said, it was like almost PTSD. Like I was in this frozen state of fear. And it was
Yeah.
with psilocybin, the micro dosing that was able to help me it just like like you said, calm the nervous system down, like rebalanced myself and then just like connected me back to the earth so I could like settle down. Do you think that it's able to completely rewire
Yeah.
us or uh-huh.
Yeah. If that's what we want.
Yeah.
And that's what we said the intention for.
Mhm.
It's one of the most loving, willing servants I've met in the plant world. I know it's a
Mhm.
fungus, but I call it a
Yeah.
plant. It's from the earth. It's plant medicine. Um, it so wants us to have everything we want, just like divine intelligence does.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different than divine intelligence to me. It's just in a physical format. So yeah, I think I've just totally forgotten your question.
Well, yeah, I know. Well, I was listening to you, and then now I'm like, oh yeah, I was like listening deep into what you were saying. Well, okay. Well, we'll just kind of go on from that one. It's funny. My main question was that like where do you think it came from? Where do you think psilocybin? There's little spores, so where do you think it came from?
I mean, I think it's like symbolically, it would be like God took his or her robe off and shook it, and then
Mhm.
all of that frequency landed on the earth and became this
Mhm.
net that we can
Mhm.
tap into. And
Mhm.
it's the same net that's on our brain. It's the same net that's
Yeah.
in the roots of all the trees. Like nothing's really separate from nature to people. The
Uh-huh.
forms look a little bit different, but we're not
Right.
separate. So to me, it's like this cloak of remembrance
Uh-huh.
that's always underneath the soil that we always have access to. I don't believe we're meant to struggle on earth. I think
Mhm.
that's just ignorance and us not
Yeah.
understanding all the tools we've been given. So I like to be able to tap into, and I it's not just psilocybin. I think this
Yeah.
way of herbs and animals too.
Mhm.
They're all just different, and you too.
Yeah.
Everything's just a different reflection of God.
Yeah.
And that's the frequency of wholeness.
Mhm.
So, whatever you want to call it, divine intelligence source, there's a blueprint inside that word, inside that energy form of
Yeah.
wholeness and completeness. And that's it. It's joy,
Mhm.
love, bliss. That's it. So,
Mhm.
when we're tapping into these other frequencies, either through herbs or
Mhm.
fungi or whatever, we're literally communing with God. And I
Mhm.
think people have separated themselves so far from the earth that they
Mhm.
think, that's not possible. I have
Right.
to pray and I have to do all this stuff. But it's like, no, it's in you, it's all
Right.
around you. It's the person that just served you at the post office. That's God in a different form.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to be able to recognize those things. So
Right. Yeah, no, it's really interesting how you're using the word frequency. And so even though this is like a physical object, like the mushroom is a physical object, but it's really the frequency that you're talking about. And that's where it's like diving deep more into this whole quantum realm that I'm like there's a specific, very specific frequency to each one. So personally for me sometimes it's stronger, sometimes it's stronger and sometimes it's not. So what does that mean? Like if it's the same type of frequency or is each mushroom a different frequency of the whole?
yeah,
Kind of like
I
humans.
I think nature is always even keel and centered and balanced.
Mhm.
And then I think us as humans, we vary greatly. How
Mhm.
far we are from feeling source, how close we are from feeling source. So I think it's where we're positioned energetically
Mhm.
is why we might feel a stronger effect sometimes and a very subtle effect sometimes. I
Mhm.
think it's just based on our current energetic resonance within ourselves.
Interesting.
So
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
if you're like, swinging off to the right and your brain's
Yeah.
going crazy and you're feeling anxious and you have this big psilocybin impact,
Yeah.
whereas yesterday you didn't, it's just showing you the gap.
Mhm.
That's how I experience it. When things are really aligned and subtle and soft, it just means that's where I'm at. I'm really aligned right
Mhm.
now.
Do you think that psilocybin and these other medicines are like come from this planet? I don't want to use the word natural because they are natural on our planet right now, but do they come from this planet or do you think they were seeded on this planet?
That's an interesting question. Um, First hit is definitely feels like it was seeded.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm a seed. So
Mhm.
I feel in alignment with that. Like what I've noticed is I've noticed some beings that I've encountered are 100% of the earth, of this earth, have never been in an intergalactic space.
And who
And
are
then
those? I don't, yeah, who, like
um,
what type of beings?
the beings that the beings that are totally okay with getting a job that they're not passionate about,
Mhm.
working for money, paying bills.
Mhm.
I'm not judging any of this, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And it's not just that it's not that subject matter. It's the fact that they never question if there's anything more. It's
Mm-hmm.
the beings that will have a negative experience and be like, that's just how it is. I'm going to go have a beer and do it all again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And they never have this part of their consciousness or brain say, but can we create more? Could I be? Do I
Mm-hmm.
want more? I've met a lot of beings where they never ask themselves that question.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas me, if I'm not asking myself that question, I'm dying.
Uh-huh.
So it's a really extreme difference of
Yeah.
how I operate compared to how some of the earth beings operate.
Mm-hmm.
And I've studied a lot of them because there's a couple in my family. And I just find it fascinating where I'm like, wait, you never ask yourself that question? You never think about this? They're like, why would I? And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, oh.
Oh, yeah.
So I look at myself as a star seed, and all that means is that I came from a galaxy. Like I don't think I've been in a realm like this before.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm really still shocked. I'm 42 and I'm still shocked
Yeah.
that there's a planet that's operating like this on
Yeah.
this level. I get shocked when I see the vast consciousness
Yeah.
that's available.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like will harm an animal.
Yeah.
You have to be insane to think
Mm-hmm.
you're separate from the animal.
Yeah.
If you're not asking yourself those questions,
Yeah.
like, where did you come from?
Right.
So that's kind of how I perceive it. I also don't know if I'm right. I'm not attached to my ideas, but I've been very interested in studying people that don't ask themselves that questions. Like,
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. And that's a huge part of our population. Or just from what we're seeing, it's really hard to tell because, I feel like there's this like kind of, shaping of our reality online,
yeah,
basically, and in our social media. And so I'm questioning what is true. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it seems all not real to me. And it's a little bit shocking sometimes. So yeah, it's definitely it's surrounding all of us for sure.
yeah.
And now online as well, and everybody's connected online. So yeah, it's really interesting. Um I'm curious, what are some new projects that you're working on? I've read two of your books, Follow the Medicine. This was a great one. I have this one. And then Psilocybin Transmissions. I have this one as well. And what are I think you wrote a new book recently, right? And published it.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Medicine Horse Speaks
Uh-huh.
is the book I'm working on right now. And I was doing it on like I was reading one chapter aloud on my YouTube to just try and have a more interactive writing experience. And then my move took place, so I
Mm-hmm.
paused it for like 2 months. But that's the book that I'm working on right now. I'm using my psilocybin trademark. I just launched that product where it's a bag of hot chocolate mix
Mm-hmm.
called psilocybin ceremonial chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
There's no psilocybin in it, but because I have the trademark to the word, I can use that as a brand name rather than an ingredient. And then that bag of chocolate comes with a book. It's a little 4x6 psilocybin handbook that's
Mm-hmm.
33 pages long that tells you why psilocybin why you can heal yourself with
Mm-hmm.
psilocybin, how does it work. It's like 33 short little mini chapters of
Mm-hmm.
insight. And I haven't, because of the move, the product's available, but I haven't gone into the marketing or the promotion or
Mm-hmm.
anything yet. I'm planning on doing that this winter. So those are the two things that I'm working on right now. I'm also having my website redone and I'm discontinuing certain products. And what I want to do, which will happen, is I want to make a video of me talking about each product, how it came
Mm-hmm.
to be, what it's for. So when someone's shopping,
Mm-hmm.
they see the maker, they meet
Right.
the maker. And I think that closing that gap with things that have been so industrialized, like medicine, should be very spiritual and personal.
Yes.
And I don't feel comfortable buying medicine if I don't know who the maker is. I don't know. And every time I've done that, I've regretted it. Like every
Mm-hmm.
time I bought medicine and not known what was behind it, I've always regretted it.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be a really fun way for people to interact with me and the products.
Yeah, that sounds great. And then you also have your online school, right? Kurandera Eyes.
Yeah, yeah. The online school is going awesome.
So what's that? Like, tell us about that.
So that was what came through me when I turned 40.
Mhm.
I started a course in miracles, and
Mhm.
so as I turned 41, I finished it. It's a year-long course, And I was in a state of enlightenment. I say was because I've since integrated it. It doesn't feel very different anymore.
Mhm.
But after I did that course with myself,
Mhm.
this like what came through was now make a course for others and
Mhm.
explain to them what you just did without
Mhm.
them having to do the Course in Miracles.
Mhm.
So it's an 8-week course that you take on your own timeline. Most of the students take 6 or 7 months to complete the course.
Mhm.
And we meet every month via Zoom. So the people that are in the course, we become family. I
Mhm.
mean, very connected. And once you graduate, you stay in the Zoom sessions.
Mhm.
We have people from Finland, Mexico,
Wow.
Australia, Alabama.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a cool,
That's big.
it's a cool group, and we
Uh-huh.
go through really similar transformations all the time. So when we get back together for our Zoom and people are sharing, we're like, me too, me too, me too, me too, you know? And it's just like you can see how the soul pods shift
Yeah.
together.
That's so cool. That's awesome. And yeah, definitely A Course in Miracles is pretty deep. It's dense, dense work,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
And
know.
it healed me from hating the word God.
Mhm.
Like God and calling God a guy. I had so many judgments from coming from a spiritual place or whatever. And then really realizing that like God is just 3 letters that form a word that carry a vibration. And
Yeah.
all my shit that I had with it, I let all that go.
Mhm.
I transformed so much just because I had so many dense beliefs that were not serving me. And it showed
Mhm.
me how
Yeah, no, I too had issues saying the word God as well until I did that deeper spiritual work. Then I was
yeah.
fine with it. But yeah, that definitely is like a pre-programmed, response for sure.
Yeah.
Growing up in our society, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Especially
just
in
yeah,
Northern California. I mean, I think if
yeah.
you said the word God in Northern California, people would be like, "Are you a fucking Christian?
Yeah.
Why does it matter?
Yeah.
Why did
Yeah,
you ask?"
no, I see. Yeah, it really depends on where you are. Definitely in the United
Yeah.
States or in the world, like using that term for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm curious, there's been a lot of talk right now in the channeling world about us shifting into this new world and, that Earth is shifting and going through this birthing process and humanity is on the precipice of massive change one way or another. I'm curious what downloads you've gotten about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're at like 60% through it.
Hmm.
And I think from here on out, it's only going to get more intense. I mean, it's crazy because it's really hard to communicate what's going on. Like this morning, I got out of the shower and I started brushing my teeth and I was like, oh, okay, so I've done this before. I've seen this in a soul review or something before.
Hmm.
And I was like going through my morning routine, being like, why am I remembering this rather than living it right now?
Hmm.
So I'm like, for me, I think what happened was I realized like I'm never manifesting anything. I'm just sensing what's coming. And then
Hmm.
because I'm in the 3D form, I call that my desire. And
Hmm.
then I think I want to manifest this desire, but there's no time.
Hmm.
So everything is literally happening right now.
Right.
So I can sense things that I may be experiencing next. I
Hmm.
don't think there's anything else for me to create. I've already created it. And now I'm just kind of walking through what I've created
Hmm.
because there is no time. So from that mental framework, that's how I look at what's going on.
Hmm.
And just intuitively, it feels like we're about 60% through. It doesn't feel like everyone's meant to go through this.
Hmm.
We on this earth, we need to have the dark and the light to know where the light is.
Right.
So there are volunteers on the planet that are never going to evolve, and they're not meant to. They're here to serve us in their unevolution by
Uh-huh.
showing us where the light is.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of how I look at it is, I think a lot of people are like, why are some people so dense? And it's like, well, thank them that they're showing you where these markers are and
Hmm.
where you want to go. Because if you don't have that awareness, you're kind of like floating.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know what's coming, but what feels like is coming is this heaven experience that a lot of people are not comfortable with. A lot of people are comfortable with suffering, complaining,
Hmm.
focusing on the negative because they're used to it and they think it's real. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of fear gets awakened when it's like, it's just going to be good for you from now on.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to have everything you want from now on. I think that makes people anxious because they're not used to it and they think
Mm-hmm.
it's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what people are facing right now is yes, it's only going to be good.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that the time frame, I mean, it's really hard to put a time on all of this, but like, do you think this could take quickly or like maybe like 500 to 700 years of transition?
Oh no, I think by 2027, a bunch of us are just going to be living in heaven on earth.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take the vibration from which we came and we're going to anchor it so fully on the earth that that's all that we're going to experience. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean we're not going to be clashing with other realities that have been
Okay.
formed around us.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm already seeing it I've only been in Colorado for 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a massive shift. I'm already seeing things differently on this property than I
Mm-hmm.
did. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not trying. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not doing anything intentionally. I'm just living.
Uh-huh.
So like I think these things are going to come through whether we want them or not. And then how much good can we accept, I think is the question.
Mm-hmm. It's a question. So do you feel like humanity is going through this together, or are we like based upon our perceptions and our thoughts, because our thoughts are creating our reality?
Yeah.
Are people going to be experiencing different things based upon what their thoughts are? So are they
Oh,
going to be seeing different things based upon what their thoughts are?
100%.
Uh-huh.
Everything happens in phases, right?
Yeah.
When you wash your clothes, you don't put it in the machine and then you take them out clean. They get wet, they get soap put on them.
Yeah.
So we're all going through these different phases. I'm already bumping up against realities where I can't understand people.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'll be somewhere and someone will be talking to me and I'm looking at them and I'm like, I know you're speaking English, but I cannot put together what you're saying or what your
Mm-hmm.
intention is, which means I don't know how to answer you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a really weird feeling. And I think that that just means that the vibrational gap between us is so far
Mm-hmm.
that I can't relate. I don't think that's ever going to change on Earth. I think this is meant to be a 3D soul school.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're always going to have these other people that have their own reality, where they only want to talk about what's bad.
Mm-hmm.
They only want to complain. They only want to suffer, and they have every right to have that experience here. So, people that choose that life path, I have such a really hard time understanding them or being able to relate to them. So I think that that's going to become like a Grand Canyon gap.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if when the gap gets big enough, they just dissolve from what we can perceive
Mm-hmm.
and we go into like a fourth dimensional frequency. I think that may be, 20, 30 years down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But I think by 2027, a lot of us will be living in our communities, holding these workshop spaces
Mm-hmm.
and just sharing heaven on earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really fascinating because some of the indigenous people through my circle, the Kogi, so the Kagaba Nation, they said they got a transmission that the beginning or the ending is falling into the beginning,
Yeah.
and it's coming soon, like
Yeah.
within the next couple of years. So, is that what you're kind of seeing too?
Yeah.
Like this new thing is emerging, but it is scary, like you said, because there's so much hate and anger from this past, supposed past, even though we're all experiencing now. Yeah, and just like merging into that is creating a lot of shifts, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And we have the ability to command realities out of our frequency. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, if I'm experiencing something and I'm like, I don't want to experience this, I can command a different reality and then I
Uh-huh.
can let it go. And then that reality will form in front of me.
I like how you use the word command. How do you go about commanding? What is your steps?
I learned this from Florence Scovel Shinn, is not my idea.
Okay.
I read all her books.
Mm-hmm.
She's amazing. The first thing I tried, basically is very small. I like to start with very small things and then go to the bigger things.
Mm-hmm.
So I found this bird's nest that was made of my horsehair, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And I really wanted to keep it, but I was taking my cat for a walk. So I
Mm-hmm.
put it on the swing and then I forgot about it. And then that night we had a huge thunderstorm, huge winds, and I woke up and I was like, oh man, I bet it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to where it is and I'm like, it is gone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be in this reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I command that there's no loss in divine mind, therefore all shall be restored to me and more. And then
Mm-hmm.
I let it go. and I start walking. And then I walk 2 feet to my left and I find a different bird's nest that's 10 times bigger. It's all the same horsehair that I really wanted it because it had my horse's hair in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, there we go. Like I commanded a different reality. Now I get the bird's nest. But what I commanded was and more. So then I start walking and then I find the original bird's nest that I had found. So not only did I show up to a lost bird's nest reality, I commanded that I want it back and more.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's what came. It's easy with a bird's nest.
Yeah. Interesting.
But and I've done that with people's health and it's worked. As long as I don't have an emotional investment in the outcome, it works.
Right. So really detaching yourself from the outcome itself and just letting it be and letting it happen, but making that very clear, like, I command this statement.
Yeah. That's what we're here to do. We're here to, I say pretend being God, but we are God. We're here to exercise those powers.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm just curious, what message would you like to tell people in general about the medicine you're working with and just like the message that you are trying to the gift of your message to our world?
I would say that joy, love, expansion, and peace is your divine birthright. And it is all you are here to really mean to feel. Anything beyond that is a choice. So if you're suffering or you're really struggling or you're really sick, I know that that feels real and it is real on some level. And there's 10 million doors and pathways out of that. A lot of people that come to me, they come to me because they've gone through the Western medical system and they haven't gotten any help. And they're like, someone told me you have, these microdoses and I'll try anything at this point. And then 3 days later, they're like, oh my God, like, why didn't I contact you sooner? So it's to me, the tools are out there, the support is out there, the love is out there. People like me are only on the planet to love and serve everyone that's suffering and to be this remembrance beacon of light to say, you don't have to suffer. I've been there. I'm not telling you it doesn't suck. I know it sucks.
Yeah.
If people knew some of the stuff I've been through, they would know how easily I can relate to suffering. But it is a choice.
Yep.
And now when I have a bad day, I'm conscious. I'm choosing a bad day. And I'm okay with choosing bad days sometimes. I'm okay with having those experiences because it is a free will decision that I'm making. And if I want to be frustrated at someone for an hour, I let myself just feel it. And then I switch back into sending love. Like you can't block. You have to walk through every emotion you're feeling.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the tools to do that, find someone that can give them to you or remind you of them. And just don't feel like you're never alone.
Right.
Never.
Yeah, no, I love that message. Yeah. And our divine right is the choice.
Yeah.
We have the right to choose the path we want to take and be who we want to be. So yeah, that's a beautiful message. Thank you. Where can we find your medicine and how can we join your school? How can we follow you?
So whitefoxnectars.com or whitefoxmedicinals.com. It's the same website. That's where all my herbal wellness stuff will be, my CBD stuff. There's also a link to my online school on that website, the Curandera Eyes School. A lot of people struggle spelling that, so it might be easier just to go to the product website and then go. But my name's scarletravin.com, Raven with an I. That has my school information and how to sign up. I also have an $11 week-long psilocybin course that people can take. So if you just want to be really deeply educated on psilocybin for $11, you can take that course. It's on the same website as the Curandera Eyes. I just started like a YouTube for my ranch. Okay. So next year I want to start doing in-person sessions with me and my horses for people. So that'll be posted on the ranch website, and that's starwalkerranch.com. Okay. Yeah, and I have a Starwalker Ranch TikTok now. That's new. That's been, awesome. I don't really know how to use that app, but I'm posting videos.
Cool.
And yeah, so I am on Instagram, Starwalker Ranch and White Fox Medicinals. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I just, really enjoy talking with you, and you have such deep knowledge, and you're so intuitive. And I feel like so many people will be able to really connect with you and understand your story and love your medicine as well. And I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I feel so honored that you picked me and we got to talk. I was really excited this whole
Yeah.
week. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.